to Real Talk Christian Podcast, where we drink coffee and have real conversations on faith, culture, and society. This is Marc Hyde.
And the 2025 Chris Fuller.
Let's go. New year, but it's the same old you, brother.
That's right.
And I love you for it. Well, today, we're not talking about New Year stuff. We're going to finish, finally, the series on the 7 deadly sins. We finally made it, man. So we are talking about wrath. Is it different from anger? Why is this included on the list of 7 deadly sins? And if so, what can we do to combat it in our lives? So, Fuller, you ready?
Let's go.
Let's go. And bring that right back down. That's a long intro,
and
guys.
we're back.
If you're new to the podcast, we try to keep the intros there nice, short, and sweet. Let the music go back in and fade it back in. But that was a
We've got
situation.
We've got our benchmark for the music though. Every time
We have
to hit this here
every single time. Well, Happy New Year, my friend.
Happy 2025. We made it another year, another holiday season in the bag.
I feel like
Get
I'm
it?
out of focus.
Because it's Santa in the bag.
If I go closer, I don't know. I'm always so focused
you're
on
fine,
being
dude.
in
You're
focus
fine.
or not.
You're fine.
So,
It's your eyes. You get your eyes checked, you'll be fine.
we'll see what happens. But, we had a great conversations around Christmas and then how to keep your eyes focused on him and how to have a great New Year. And now we're talking about sin.
No, and then last episode was the let them live.
I messed that up.
Was
and now we're talking
live.
about
and
sin
now
and wrath.
we're just like sin and wrath. We're like, hey, babies are great. No, we're going to talk about anger of God.
And we'll get into this whole conversation, bro. We will get into this conversation.
But before we do...
No, before we even do that, I got a fun question for you.
Before.
I got a fun question for you. So this year...
Speaking of which, so Mark says 36 minutes he's shooting
That's the goal, Sabrina.
And it's not going to happen.
That's the goal.
Not going to happen.
That's the goal, Joe. So
anyways.
Here's my random question, right? So New Year, we always do random new coffee things, right?
Yeah.
Is there a new coffee thing you're going to try to do this year? Because it seems like there's always something new, where like espresso or different like pour over types or
I don't know.
roasting, or is it just like same old, same old?
I don't know. Get back to me. I might have something. I might come up. I think I have an idea. I'm going to save it for a surprise though.
This sounds bad. It doesn't sound bad, but I'm like, I feel like I need to get back into my AeroPress this year.
I was thinking about that, but I think I'm gonna buy something and bring it, and we're gonna air it on the podcast. We're gonna brew coffee on. Is
it like the old like Belgian style where you heat the one side and then it goes over and it percolates and comes back, and then when it's done, everything closes and the flame closes?
I'm not gonna divulge.
Are you gonna buy that $10,000 contraption thing that we've looked at?
No, I'm not gonna divulge what I'm gonna do.
Turkish coffee?
But I already have Turkish coffee. That's old news, man. That's like 3 years old. I've been
the mocha pot. Is that the mocha pot? Is that Turkish coffee?
No, that's Italian.
Right. But so what's the
Turkish coffee is like it's a little steel container and it's a long handle, and typically what you do is you traditionally have hot sand and you would do it and brew it. It's very finely ground, extra
so
fine
like
ground,
espresso grind.
More
than espresso
more
grind?
than that. It's like powdered sugar grind, and you put it in there and you put like a half a tablespoon of sugar in there and water, and it's only about that tall. It's like an espresso shot, and you actually heat it up in hot sand. And that's how until it starts to boil and it gets a foam. It starts foaming up at the top, and you scoop off the foam, and that's like your sugar is foaming up. And you put that in the bottom of your espresso cup, and then you let it go a little bit longer until it stops foaming, and then you pour that over the top, and that's Turkish coffee.
But where did the grounds go?
You drink the grounds. They dissolve in the coffee. That's why it's extra.
So it's like instant coffee.
It's like instant coffee, but before instant coffee was good.
I feel like I need to try this crap because I did not know that.
Yeah, so
I did not know.
I don't have the hot sand. I have the electric stove version.
Well, obviously, because we're Americans. And we live in the 21st century, folks.
I ain't got no hot sand around me.
No. But I was just curious about it's New Year, new you. Maybe it's not a new you. I don't know.
So that's not new me.
If your old you's pretty terrible, you probably should get a new you. And follow Jesus. But I was just curious about okay, New Year, we always just there's always something new in the coffee world that we do every single year where it's like, this would be fun to get into. But But for me, it's like I feel like I want to get back into my AeroPress again. Because it takes so much time.
I haven't done a good mocha pot in a while.
I haven't done a good pour over very often anymore. I just do drip.
So I don't do pour overs. I do a pour over at work every once in a while.
But guess what Beth got me?
What'd she get?
Because of your influence.
Uh-oh.
I now have a nice fancy gooseneck
tea kettle?
Tea kettle that has the temperature control sensor and keeps it at that temperature for
the holding zone.
So now it's not just flip on and then I wait and then I have to then if I walk away, shoot, I got to reheat
the perfect temperature for coffee.
180, right?
No,
165?
it depends on the
See, here we go. We bougie. Right? We told you, Emily, we bougie.
So 195 is your light to medium roast. Your medium dark roast is 208. Those are your top-notch temperatures. Anything over 208, you might as well just do tea bags because it's not good for coffee. It's too much.
Because you're going to burn it.
You're going to burn it. And that's typically what drip coffee is that 212 mark, 210, 212. And so that's why it's not as good as when you use the gooseneck and you do a pour over.
Yeah. See, I spent
you get that nice bloom.
Now, there's a machine out there that I want to get that does the pour over for you. It's like you set it up at the drip coffee and then you press the button and it does
So if you guys were wondering what you could get us for Christmas, I mean, though that Christmas is past, a late Christmas gift, you could buy us that machine.
No, I want a Tesla. Give me a Tesla.
No, we're talking coffee, dude.
Oh, my bad. I can go pick up my coffee in my Tesla.
The Tesla comes with the coffee maker inside.
Bro, Elon Musk, let's go.
Like the old Volkswagens used to have. That would be cool.
We're not keeping this episode under 36
minutes.
I
told you.
I told you.
Just keep on turning.
Let's get into this review and then get after it.
All right. So the review today it says, this over a year ago, again, it says, this podcast is dope.
Let's go.
From Austinas.
I like this review. You'll see why in a second.
Love the banter. Love the topics. Love how the guys compliment one another.
Oh, you cute. You pretty.
Great conversation is made from two different stances on many topics, which gets my mind thinking about what my truth is. I'm young and learning, but I have found it good to challenge my own way of thinking to keep in line with Jesus and not just tradition. I live in Florida, but I'm from Wisconsin. And
wait, which part? Western or Eastern? I lived in.
It doesn't say.
I'm curious from him. I want to know. What is it? Austinas? I don't know. Let me know.
I live in Florida now, but I'm from Wisconsin, and my fiance is from Griffith, Indiana.
Let's go. She's from the region.
Let's go, region rats.
Hey, there we go.
I'm hoping next time I'm up, I'll get to come visit Southside. Hey, Southside Baptist.
Which I'm not there anymore, but
this is Marc's design that he made that's still being used. And I've made it a goal to someday get my hands on some Fuller roast.
You come to town, baby. He'll hook you up.
If you let me know ahead of time, I could probably hook you up if you come to town.
He needs at least a 3-month heads up.
I need some time. But if you let me know, I could probably arrange that. So keep it real talk.
I love it.
We'll do our best.
So awesome.
But
at least get a mini swag bag.
Well, that's what I was going to say. So go ahead and reach out to us. First of all, I need to know your name. Marc wants to know exactly
what part of Wisconsin you from.
Exactly. And then give us your current address so we can get you a mini swag bag in the mail. We do still send those out. And something we haven't talked about for a while, but I do want to mention, we do still have Bibles left over if you're in need of a Bible.
Look at that.
Since we still do have quite a few Bibles, and we have a lot of people that are new. If you're in need of a Bible, we do have a few Bibles that we give away for free here in the United States only. So if you're listening, you're in the United States. We tried doing the worldwide thing. It got really expensive.
Really fast.
Talk
about a budget buster.
And we don't have a sponsor anymore. So when we had a sponsor, we used to do that. We don't have a sponsor anymore. And so we do not do worldwide. But if you're in the United States, we will gladly send you a Bible if you are in need of one or know somebody that's in need of one. So if you do, reach out to realtalkchristianpodcast@gmail.com. Let us know. And we'll get that sent out to you. Janelle's pretty good about that. She checks it usually every Monday to see if we've got anything new. So
I haven't had anything new in a while.
She just got somebody DM'd her from the Facebook group.
DM'd Janelle directly?
Yeah, because they were talking about it, and so she sent them a swag bag. So yeah.
So Janelle's better than us.
So if you get it to us, we're usually about a week to a week and a half. We'll get it on the list, and then Janelle's the next week. She checks it and gets them sent out. So
that's pretty cool.
Usually within I always say give us a couple weeks to get it out to you, because then there's whatever shipping time is. But yeah, usually within 2 to 3 weeks, you'll get a mini swag bag or a Bible.
And if you leave a review and it's more recent, still just let us know.
Yeah, we're way behind.
Because we're still a year behind. We're
way behind. But anyways,
it's a good
bro,
problem to have.
We've had so many fun conversations. We've talked about 6 of the 7 deadly sins, and you're like, bro, it's
gotta
time to finish this one.
Because you said, hey, we should do another big Christian one, and I said, nah, bro, I want to finish the 7 deadly sins.
Right, because I like the big Christian words.
It's fun. That's a fun one.
I like these little mini series you got going on. So.
Absolutely. But so I figured we should probably land the plane on one of these mini series because
we like to start new ones all the time and never finish the old ones.
Season 2 was when we started this, and we're in season 6 now, halfway through season 6.
Holy cow!
So we talked about pride in episode 81. We talked about lust in 89. We were trying to go really fast, and then all of a sudden we were like, hey, let's wait like a whole year. And then we did 132 on gluttony.
Pump the brakes.
Then episode 162, 30 episodes later on
another
greed.
half a year.
And then another 45 episodes later, envy. And then another 22 episodes, but every other week release, so another half a year.
And now we're at 259.
And now at 259, we are talking about wrath. So
another half a year.
Another half a year. That's kind of been the rhythm. So before we can even talk about wrath, I want to set the stage for the 7 deadly sins. So
stage left or stage right?
Stage left.
Okay.
So that way... I didn't even hesitate. So that way, we at least know what the 7...
I don't remember where my rim shot's at now. I was looking for it. Never mind.
Did you lose it? But
I got the crouch here, though.
There we go. There you go. So, but...
There it is.
There we go. But so needless to say,
you notice how I'm sabotaging your time.
Yes, you are killing me. So needless to say, I do want to reset the stage to talk about the 7 deadly sins in general, why we are talking about it, why we've included it, and kind of so if people are new to the show, maybe they've never heard this before, give a context of what this even are. So
even are?
Even is. Let me read. So here's a quick review of what the 7 deadly sins are from our friends over at GotQuestions.org. It says, according to Catholic theology, the 7 deadly sins are 7 vices or negative character qualities that, left unchecked, will result in a host of other sins and eventually kill a person's soul. The 7 deadly sins are pride, envy, gluttony, lust, anger, greed, and slothfulness. The list was first delineated by Pope Gregory the Great in the 6th century, which I have to read that every single time. In this,
and you put it in there every single time.
700s AD. Thomas Aquinas, our boy St. Tommy, later expounded on this idea. And then in the 14th century, Dante wrote his epic poem, Inferno, in which he pictured purgatory as having 7 terraces, corresponding to the 7 deadly sins.
I love how slap happy we are right now, and we just can't.
I'm trying to get through this.
We're word salading all over the place.
Wow, what a time to say that. But needless to say, the 7 deadly sins are also called the 7 capital sins or 7 cardinal sins. Cardinal in this context basically mean of basic importance or extreme grave. The 7 deadly sins are considered to be the most basic sins that plague humanity. This is why we're talking about it, that plague humanity and the sins that are most likely to beset us. Each of the 7 deadly sins ultimately leads to other sins. So even though the 7 deadly sins does not come directly from the Bible, they actually do a great job categorizing the root source of various sins. But we do want to say the big difference with, Protestant theology, which is we are in the Catholic theology, is the fact of we don't believe that these can eternally damn your soul to hell because, as we talked about it, these sins are forgivable.
Any sin without Jesus, though, will.
Now, on episode 34, we had someone just recently bring this up in the RTC Facebook group community of, hey, here's things that you guys should talk about. Oh, I forgot. I put a post and said, hey, what should we talk about at the top of the episode? People dropped us a whole bunch of lists.
And then
so we might need to do like a live at some point and talk about those things just for kicks and giggles. That's like a bonus episode. Okay. But needless to say, there is an unforgivable sin. We talked about it in episode 34, but the 7 deadly sins are forgivable. That's just a fact. So even though Catholic theology says this is what can damn your soul, we say this is just what can really screw your life up. So that's kind of where we're at. But the 7 deadly sins, there is not a... I hit my microphone again. There is not an actual verse or passage about the 7 deadly sins, but it does a great job categorizing the sins that can then lead to so many other different sins and honestly a lot of pain and heartache and suffering in our lives. So we talked about 6 of them, and today we're talking about wrath. And so when you think of wrath, now some people will say that anger is one of the 7 deadly sins. However, wrath, again, that's based on what list you look at. However, wrath is the one that's most commonly put into this list because the Bible says you can be angry and not sin.
But
Go ahead. Pause. I'll pause.
Pause. Question, sir, teacher.
This is going to be an hour-long episode, folks.
Doesn't God have wrath?
He does.
Oh, okay.
And we're going to talk about it.
Wouldn't that be a part of the 7 deadly sins then, if he's got wrath?
We'll talk about it. We will talk about it. We will talk about it. But with, and I'm going to catch that ball and not hit it out of the park yet.
Not yet.
Put it away. Put it away. But with the idea of anger, though, we can be angry and not sin.
Sure.
So is there a different definition is there a difference between anger and wrath? And I do want to say, if you want to hear different things about how to control anger and why anger infects our lives and what we can do when anger rears its ugly head, we have a whole lot of episodes all about anger. So go to the website, search icon, anger, you'll find a whole bunch of lists. But so for a good definition today for wrath, here's what Webster Dictionary has to say. It says a strong, vengeful anger or indignation. So wrath is a strong, vengeful anger. In other words, it's anger that leads to doing something. Retributory. Is that right? Retributory. Punishment for an offense or a crime. Divine chastisement. So wrath is taking anger to the nth degree in order to retaliate or to retribute or to have some sort of vengeful anger that results in action.
To get back at somebody.
Absolutely. So now you can see about this little definition. But what's interesting is if you look up wrath in any Bible dictionary, and I have quite a few in my library, if you look it up, it primarily only talks about the wrath of God. And not just, in a bad way, but God's holy wrath. So when you look at, you hear about the wrath of God and the pouring out of God's wrath and these different things. When you look in the actual Bible dictionaries, that's what it's talking about. So what I did instead was, okay, so if that's what the Bible dictionary says about wrath, what's a good definition of anger from these Bible dictionaries to see if they kind of categorize anger and wrath in the same spot. So in the Easton's Bible Dictionary, which is actually a really old Bible dictionary, but it's one of my favorites, it says this for anger is the emotion of instant displeasure on account of something evil that presents itself to our view. In itself, it is an original susceptibility. I'm having a hard time reading tonight. Of our nature, just as love is, and is not necessarily sinful. It may, however, become sinful. Here you go. When causelessness or excessive or protracted. In other words, anger is not a sin. It's a very natural reaction that we have to things that are done against us or to other people that are evil. However, when it could become sinful, when your anger causes you to do things that are excessive or things that you have to take back, that's what protracted means. Or, like it says here in the Webster Dictionary for definition for wrath, it's a vengeful indignation, punishment for that thing. Thank you for making my font just a little bit bigger. I do appreciate it.
So I was working on it for you. Now it's really big for you.
Well, now my notes are all messed up. So what does the Bible say about this topic, right? So if anger is just a normal thing that we deal with, but wrath is bad because it's taking anger and actually acting upon it in a very vengeful way, what does the Bible have to say about wrath? So in Matthew 5:21-24, it says this: you have heard that it was said, this is Jesus talking, you have heard that it was said to our ancestors, do not murder, and whoever murders is subject to judgment. But I tell you, everyone who is angry with his brother or sister will be subject to judgment. Whoever insults his brother or sister will be subject to court. Whoever says, you fool, will be subject to hellfire.
Or raka.
So if you are offering your gift to the altar and you remember that your brother or sister has something against you, leave your gift there in front of the altar. First, go and be reconciled to your brother or sister, and then come and offer your gift. And the idea with this passage is more about the simple fact that if you have done something against your brother or there's some disagreement because of anger that you have then acted upon, you best go take care of it before you even go and worship God. And so for Jesus, this idea is the fact of it's not just what you do, it's the emotions behind what you do that are important as well. In Ephesians chapter 4, verses 17 through 28, a big chapter of scripture, the Apostle Paul says this: Therefore, I say this and testify in the Lord. You should no longer walk as the Gentiles do in the futility of their thoughts. They are darkened in their understanding, excluded from the life of God because of the ignorance that is in them and because of the hardness of their hearts. They have become callous and give themselves over to promiscuity for the practice of every kind of impurity with a desire for more and more. But this is not how you came to know Christ, assuming that you heard about him and were taught by him, as the truth is in Jesus. So take off your former way of life. Here you go. You ready? The old self that is corrupted by deceitful desires, to be renewed in the spirit of your mind, to put on the new self, the one created according to likeness and the righteousness and purity of the truth. Therefore, put away lying, speak the truth each to his neighbor, because we are members of one another. Be angry and don't sin. Don't let the sun go down on your anger, and don't give the devil an opportunity. Let the thief no longer steal. Instead, he is to do honest work with his own hand so that he has something to share with anyone in need. And then in Colossians chapter 3, verses 5 through 11, it says this. Therefore, based on everything he said before, since you're a follower of Jesus, therefore, put to death what belongs to your earthly nature: sexual immorality, impurity, lust, evil desire, greed, which is idolatry. Because of these, God's wrath is coming upon the disobedient. And you once walked according to these things when you were living in them. But now put away all the following: anger, wrath, malice, slander, and filthy language from your mouth. Don't lie to one another, since you have put off the old self with its practices and have put on the new self. You are being renewed in knowledge according to the image of your Creator. In Christ there is no Greek or Jew, circumcised or uncircumcised, barbarian, Scythian, slave or free, but now all are in Christ. But Christ is all and is in all. So here's the question, okay? Why would Paul mention anger and wrath separately, but also together as a work of the flesh in these passages? So this is where we get to have some little conversation. That's where you can talk.
Oh, I was just following you. Go for it.
No, you're good. It's the fact of, so why would Paul mention that anger and wrath is a part of the works of the flesh? And that's not at all
because
the
they're
way
two
of the
separate
Spirit.
things.
Okay. And then, but put them together as well. But why is anger and wrath a work of the flesh?
Why? Well, it's the attitude in the heart behind the anger and wrath. What is it about?
Okay.
That's
it.
That's my thoughts on it.
Oh, they're going to say a lot more about that.
I'm
talking about. So what I'm thinking.
I've talked a lot the last couple episodes. It's your turn to talk.
We're not supposed to talk that. We record multiple episodes at one time. But when we hear the idea of the fact of anger or wrath, at least when I think about it, anger is the heart of what you feel. Mm-hmm. And Jesus said, if you believe or if you say in your heart, I wish he was dead, that's basically you committing that sin. Mm-hmm. And so when we see anger is the response that we have, but anger carried out in this sense, I think the Apostle Paul is trying to say is anger is an internal reaction that we do. And wrath, though, is trying to pour out, a vengeance or judgment or retaliation for what has been done to us.
Well, yeah, I mean, righteous anger, right, is you're angry because of an injustice or something that goes against God. I believe that's a righteous anger. An unrighteous anger or a sinful anger is exactly what you just said. It's vengeful. It's wanting retribution in an evil manner, not for the good of the person, but because you just want to see them suffer. Those types of things, I think that's a sinful anger. So
then why, and we've talked about anger in a lot of episodes, so I don't want to stay there too long. So I guess my question then would lead into that is the fact of, so wrath, out of all the different sins that are out there in the world, why would wrath be included in a list of 7 deadly sins, do you think?
I guess it depends on their definition of wrath.
Okay.
Where they put it in the 7 deadly sins, right? Because if you look at the righteous wrath of God, right, it wouldn't belong there. But we know God's wrath is different from our wrath. Our wrath is very vengeful.
Right.
His wrath is, it's vengeful, but in a different. It's in a righteous vengefulness.
Right. But let's think about it. Right.
In a way.
So like I had to do jury duty a couple years ago, which wow, I think that was a couple years ago. Jeez. But I had to do jury duty, and I had to sit on the court case. I was selected for the jury. I had to be there for 2 days. It was an intro. It was cool to see our legal process actually work out. But whenever you think of the guilty party, right? Like we found the defendant guilty of the crime that was brought to him in court. And so we found him guilty. If he was found guilty, and again, this wasn't a murder, it wasn't a big trial case, but let's say this was a murder, right? So someone took the life of somebody else, they sat on the court case, and they found that person guilty, but the judge went, you know what? Y'all found him guilty, but I'm going to let him walk free, have a good life, because I'm going to show grace and mercy and compassion on this person. Would we all cry foul on that, or is the right thing to do for that judge to bring the wrath of the state upon that individual?
In a human term, I know I could tell you what it is, but in the terms of God,
but God orchestrated the state, right? He set up the state to wield the sword.
It's similar, right? Yeah, of course, Romans 13. But with God's eyesight, if we take that and place it in our life as a believer in how God views us, right? God doesn't see us in the courtroom through just us. He sees us through his son and in the blood of Christ, which is a different light.
Right, but I'm talking just on the court system.
But
just on the court system.
Just on the court system, yeah. I mean, that would be the right thing to do, is for the judge to give justice.
And that's what's so fascinating about this conversation with God, is the fact of, in our world, we understand and we want to see wrath poured out because that's where justice is found. But so many times when we get so angry and so blinded that we're going to do whatever we can, no matter what stops us, whether what is it? As long as the creek don't rise and the whatever that fun Southern saying is, I don't really know. But basically, no matter what happens, I'm going to get my payback. Like, that's when it crosses into the line. And I feel like that's why this was added to the 7 deadly sins, is because if you are trying to take out wrath, that's where murder happen. That's where retaliation happens. That's when you find yourself in a pickle, because even though something was done to you, you all of a sudden do something bad, and now you're caught with your hand in the cookie jar.
So playing devil's advocate, then what do you do with the scripture where it says, I say to you, don't repay evil, for vengeance is mine, saith the Lord, I will repay.
And I think that's a promise that we can hang on to, is the fact.
But that's a form of repayment of vengefulness, of wrath, right? So why is it okay for God, not for us? And I'm playing devil's advocate because I have an answer to this, but I'm asking you.
Well, I would say it's a righteous, holy vengefulness that he is able to do because he's the ultimate judge and authority.
Because all sin is against him.
Right, but he's also the ultimate judge and authority. Sure. And if we put ourselves in the seat of the judge and the prosecutor and the attorney and all these different things, that's where we get in trouble. Like, you see all these different court cases when people get mad and upset and then go and do all these heinous crimes because of whatever. Like the I can talk about it now, but the case I was in was, it's the defendant and the plaintiff. So the plaintiff who brought the court case against this person and sued and did all these different things, like, they made a mistake. They pulled on a little hot, a little too fast, and there was no accident. It was just it should have been shoot, my bad. You good? Everyone's good. We're cool. But because of that, the guy who we found guilty came around and intimidated her with a deadly weapon. And if he would have just been like, you know what? I am extremely ticked off. I am angry. I'm not going to get my revenge on it. I'm not going to let wrath overtake me, because that person who did the thing, sure, they deserve to get yelled at and screamed at because you did something stupid. But the problem is when you take that into your own hands, all of a sudden, if he would have just walked away, he would have been fine. But because of that, he was found guilty in the court of law because he let his wrath overtake him and blind him from common sense.
But only because it's in the law that he can't do that.
Right.
Because if it wasn't in the law, then he wouldn't have been prosecuted at all for intimidation.
Right, but he let wrath overtake him. And I feel like the same way with so many different things where, like, friendships are broken, marriages are destroyed, civilizations are completely blown up because people decided that they were so angry that I'm going to do something about it. And because of it, so many times anger, when the Bible says that if you let anger overtake you, you give the devil an opportunity to step in.
100%.
And sometimes wrath might not even hurt anybody else, but the wrath and the anger that you might feel and the vengefulness that you want, it might end up just destroying yourself. And so maybe that's also why it's included in 7 deadly sins, because it can destroy people around you, but it can ultimately also destroy yourself.
No, I don't think. But again, you're talking about anger.
That then can result in wrath.
Sure.
So that's something that kind of attached to each other sometimes too. And the Apostle Paul
Sure.
did say put away anger and put away wrath. So he
100%.
did combine those
They're
two.
definitely separate, but the same, but separate.
Yep. And so I brought a few different quotes from church history here. So two of them are from, I wish I had their dates. I didn't put those down. I wish, and one's a more modern quote. But St. John Cassian said this: no matter what provokes it, anger blinds the soul's eyes, preventing from seeing the sun of righteousness. Another one I thought was really cool was St. Theodorus the Great Ascetic. Said, if the passion of anger dominates your soul, so if the passion of anger dominates your soul, those who live in the world will prove to be better than you and will put you to shame. So even as a Christian, if the passion of anger dominates your soul, those who live in the world, those who don't even follow Jesus, will prove to be better than you and put you to shame. I thought that was a very interesting quote. Another one was from Frederick Buckner. He said, of the 7 deadly sins, anger is possibly the most fun. Which is kind of head-scratching when you think about that first, but check this out. Of the 7 deadly sins, anger is possibly the most fun. To lick your wounds, to smack your lips over grievances long past, to roll over the tongue at the prospect of bitter confrontation still to come, to savor the last toothsome morsel of both the pain you are given and the pain you're given back. In many ways, it is a feast fit for a king. The chief drawback is what you are wolfing down is yourself. And the skeleton at that feast is you.
That's a good one.
I love that one.
That's a good one.
Because that's what wrath is you're building up this great anticipation of I'm gonna get them back. I'm gonna do the same to them that they did to me. And I'll say, as someone who's been hurt and betrayed and left and have gone through the divorce, you better believe that I've thought this stuff. And, I used to think I was very good at forgiveness and didn't have anger issues and all these different things until I was put in a place where there was an ultimatum of, you going to respond to this or not? Right. And did I respond to everything well? Absolutely not.
Sure.
I did not respond to everything well. But who ended up getting hurt because of it? Me. Because I responded poorly. And so many different times in our anger, again, I like how it said anger is the most fun because you think of all these different things. I'm going to get him back. It's going to be awesome. This and this and this. But the only thing you're destroying ultimately is yourself. And so when you think of what the 7 deadly sins are, it's just general categories of sins that can lead to other sins and ultimately lead to your demise. We see this with pride. That's what, caused Satan to fall. We see slothfulness, which could cause you complete just disregard and disparity and poverty and all these different things. We see gluttony, and that one is pretty self-explanatory. You see lust, which can then lead to making so many moral compromises that can ultimately destroy you. The same with greed and just wanting more and more and more and wishing you had it and you didn't. But with anger, and then also wrath at the part of it, kind of like what he said, is it can end up just absolutely destroying you. And and so when we start to ask this question of how can we combat this whole idea of wrath in our lives? Rather than just give some basic ideas of what we can do, I got a quote from our friends at gotquestion.org, and then I have a whole bunch of, not a whole bunch, I have like 3. I have 3 verses from the wisest man to ever live, Solomon. But before I read these, is there anything else you want to add, my good sir? Because I'm just talking a lot.
I'm along for the ride. You've got 3 minutes.
Here we go. So, it ain't going to happen, folks. So, If this is a 7 deadly sin, I would agree that yes, it probably is. What can we do to combat wrathfulness in our lives? From the Got Questions article of what does the Bible mean when it says, in your anger, do not sin? This is what they had to say. We all allow our anger to get the best of us at times. When we are wronged or feel unfairly disadvantaged, we naturally want to retaliate or, quote unquote, fix the problem in the fastest way. But when our response revolves rage, anger, harsh words, and slander, or I would include wrath in this from Ephesians 4:31, we have officially crossed a line. We have sinned in our anger and given the devil a foothold. Sometimes long after we should have moved on, we harbor a desire to revisit the wounds and hang on to that anger. This only leads to bitterness. So again, anger leads to wrath, and wrath can lead to bitterness.
Anger leads to hate. What is that? It's what's anger leads to.
That's a Star Wars quote?
It is. Anger leads to pain. Pain leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering. Or whatever Yoda says. Sorry. Anyways, move on.
That was actually pretty banging, bro. That was pretty good. That was pretty good.
Oh, Yoda.
But keep going on. So this only leads to bitterness. We must yield to the Holy Spirit and trust in his power to overcome such sin. And Solomon in the book of Proverbs had a whole lot to say about it, but here are 4 verses that he wrote wise words to his son. He says, he who is slow to wrath has great understanding, but he who is impulsive exalts folly. In other words, is stupid.
If you're quick to fire off at the mouth,
you're stupid.
Stupid.
Because you're going to get in a world of trouble. I can tell you from example. Proverbs 15:1 says, a gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. Proverbs 15:18 says, a hot-tempered man stirs up conflict, but a man slow to anger calms strife. And then in Proverbs 16:32, it says, whoever is slow to anger is better than the mighty and the strong, and he who rules his spirit than he who can overtake a city. And so when you see this idea is the fact of when we learn to be patient and control our anger and control our responses, it could lead to a better life. And this is where the Apostle Paul says, take this off. Take off the old man, because the old man is full of anger and full of wrath and full of hatred and full of revenge. But instead put on the fruit of the Spirit, love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, and self-control. Because with these, that's how we can make sure we don't let this sin or let our sin control us, give Satan a foothold. And then at the end of the day, we're feasting on our own bones because we destroyed ourselves.
Very good, bro.
That's my final thoughts, man. That's how I can land the plane. Anything else from you?
No, man, that was a good way.
I'm going to change my stance and say I'm going to be done with my talk at 36 minutes.
Oh, you can't do that.
Watch this. And 36 minutes now.
Time for Fun Facts with Filler.
This is why I specifically asked you, is it done with your talk at 36 minutes or you're pushing the end record button?
I don't know, man, but that's still pretty dang impressive.
That was pretty good, buddy.
That's pretty good.
I'm pretty impressed with you. Sorry.
It's because I got to pee really bad and I don't want to finish this.
There you go.
Actually, no, that's just because that's all the content I have. But, bro, we just going to slow down and enjoy this a little bit, my friends. So, do you got a fun fact to end this wonderful episode on, my dude?
Nope. Yeah, I do.
Great talk. Until next time.
So the fun fact of the day is, did you know the longest year in human history was 46 BC? It clocked in at 445 days long. They had to make up for some.
I'll say, but why?
And they were on a different calendar at that time.
So 46 BC, but is this when like the Roman Julian calendar was implemented?
Yeah, so they were doing some calendar changes and have to make up for time. 445 days long. That's a long year. That's
fascinating. Yeah. I've actually heard somewhere else too, like the amount of days in a year has actually changed based on like
used to be
the world too or something like that, because it's like gotten like the world's gotten like tighter and tighter, or like it used to be faster because of the
gravitational pull
and how the earth was created, and then after the flood, and then like the big ozone layer disappears, and like it slowed down the rotation of the earth and all that kind of stuff too. I don't know.
Maybe. I know that the Hebrew days used to only be like Hebrew years used to be only like 300 days or something like that.
Really?
Yeah, I think so.
Interesting.
Something around there. Yeah. Anyways.
That's a fun fact for you, though.
You know what else
that is a fun fact. What else is fun, Fuller?
The fact that this is episode number 259. That's a fun fact.
And some people have just started listening to us within the last year and have listened to all over 260 episodes of RTC,
poor
man.
people.
But either way, guys, for those of you guys who are new to the podcast, we want to say welcome. We are glad you're here. For those of you who have been with us since the beginning, we're glad you haven't ditched us yet. And for those who have found us somewhere in the middle, we're still thankful that you are along with us for the ride.
That's right.
Just like always, make sure you check out the RTC Online Facebook community, because we don't hang out that much on Instagram or on our public Facebook page, but we're inside the community every single day, hanging out with other listeners just like you. So let's keep the conversation going over there.
And if you haven't already, head over to our YouTube channel, Real Talk Christian Podcast. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that bell notification so when we're on, you're made aware.
There you go. And just like always, leave a rating and review anywhere podcasts are found, because when you do, it helps us get into the ears of other listeners, and maybe not even just other Christians, but people who are not sure about their faith. And just like Austin, they're trying to figure out their way through their faith and their Christianity, answers that they have. And we would love to be able to come into their lives and provide those answers to them. Again, guys, it's been real. We hope you've had a great 2025 so far. And until next time,
take it easy.